Okay, guys, so this session then we're going to look at is on nutrition and digestion, and we're also going to look at macro and micronutrients throughout this section of nutrition. So our main aims then of this session is we're going to look at the structure and function of the digestive system, and then we're going to look at macronutrients and micronutrients. So first of all, just a brief introduction to nutrition itself, and we're going to look at some definitions of different aspects of nutrition. So nutrition itself is the provision to cells and organisms of the materials necessary in the form of food to support life. For each nutrient, the optimal amount may vary depending on what parameter is being measured. So when we look at nutrition, it's all about supporting life, etc., that we put into our bodies to support life. Diet is the current food intake and habits for an individual. So what that individual is putting into their body on a day-to-day basis. Healthy eating is food intake that promotes correct and optimal operation of the structures and systems of the body. So healthy eating is making sure that we're keeping all of the structures and systems of the body ticking over at their optimal level. A balanced diet then is eating foods of different types in different amounts and levels that keep the body operating close to optimal level. So where we look at a balanced diet is looking at all of the food groups and ensuring that we have the adequate amounts from each food group. So the nutrients we take into our body through food and supplementation will play a significant role in determining our current level of wellness, our ability to resist disease, and our capacity to recover from illness. Looking into digestion then. So digestion is the breakdown and assimilation of nutrients from the foods that are ingested during meals or snacks. And there are a number of key stages. So first of all, we're looking at the mechanical breakdown of foods within the mouth and also the chemical breakdown in the stomach and small intestines. So the breakdown of food comes in mechanical and chemical form. We then absorb the nutrients in the small intestines and absorb water in the large intestine. And then finally, it's the excretion of the waste products. So first of all, we're going to look at the breakdown of food in the different parts of the body. So in the mouth, we have mastication, which is also known as mechanical chewing. So chewing of the food is called mastication. Saliva in the mouth will moisten the food and will protect the teeth against decay. It contains an enzyme, salivary amylase. Salivary amylase begins to break down the larger carbohydrate molecules in the mouth. Okay? So the thing to remember from here is that in the mouth, it is mechanical. Mastication, chewing of the food. Saliva will moisten the food, and then salivary amylase will start to break down carbohydrates, larger carbohydrate molecules. Food is then transported from the mouth down through the esophagus into the stomach. In the stomach, gastric juices contain acid and enzymes. Hydrochloric acid, first of all, will kill bacteria, and pepsin will start to break down proteins into shorter chain peptides. So now we're moving into more of a chemical breakdown. We need acidic conditions within the stomach for the breakdown of proteins. So hydrochloric acid is pumped into the stomach to kill bacteria. Pepsin is the enzyme then that will break down proteins into shorter chain peptides. The pancreas, so pancreatic juices contain enzymes. So lipase, which will break fat into fatty acids, and amylase, which will break down the remaining carbohydrates into glucose, and trypsin will break down the remaining proteins into amino acids. The liver, so food doesn't pass through the liver and food doesn't pass through the pancreas, but the liver produces bile acids stored in the gallbladder, which will help to emulsify fats or mixes fats with water. So what happens is the liver and the pancreas will dump those juices into this first section of the small intestine. So the small intestine is the main site of digestion and absorption. The pancreas and gallbladder empty into the first section called the duodenum, and villi will absorb nutrients into the blood. So food passes from the stomach into the small intestine. The liver and pancreas will dump those juices into the first section of the small intestine, where lipase will break fat into fatty acids, and then amylase and trypsin will break down the remaining what's left over of the carbohydrates and proteins. Through the remaining sections of the small intestine is where absorption takes place. So it will absorb all of the nutrients through the villi into the blood. The large intestine there is where any remaining water is absorbed, as well as vitamins and minerals. Bacteria is in this large intestine, which will produce some vitamins and fight infection in the intestines. And the rectum will store the feces before excretion. Okay, so this is a snapshot of what happens within the digestive system. What you need to remember from this is, especially for the exam, is what happens at each section. So in the mouth, mechanical breakdown, salivary amylase breaks down carbohydrates. In the stomach, we need acidic conditions in the stomach. So hydrochloric acid is pumped in to kill bacteria. And then pepsin is the enzyme that breaks proteins down. The pancreas and liver will dump their juices into the first section of the small intestine. And in the small intestine, lipase will break down fats. The remaining sections of the small intestine then is all about absorption, and villi are hair-like projections that will absorb the nutrients into the blood. The large intestine then is where the remaining water and remaining vitamins and minerals are absorbed. Bacteria is there to produce some extra vitamins, but will also fight infection in the intestines. And then the final section is the rectum, where it will store the feces before it is excreted. So, along with sending these slides out, I've got a video on this as well. So a YouTube video that explains this and shows diagrams as well as to what happens at each section of digestion. Has anybody got any questions on anything I've covered there so far? Okay. So moving on to macronutrients then. So our macronutrients are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Well, as we've looked at previously, when it comes to level 2 principles of exercise, we know that carbohydrates and fats are our main energy source. Protein's main function is for growth and repair, but protein will also kick in as an energy source when our fats and carbohydrate stores have depleted. So protein, the structure of protein. Proteins are made from molecules or building blocks called amino acids. How many amino acids are available from a natural diet? Can anybody tell me? Are you there?
Are there 4 different types?
Okay, so there's 2 different types of amino acids. So you've got essential and non-essential amino acids. But what I'm looking to try and find out is total of both types. So there are 20 amino acids available from the natural diet. So the body uses these amino acids to build and repair tissues and structures. So the main function of protein is for building and repairing tissues and structures. So essential amino acids are the 9 amino acids which the body is unable to synthesize itself. So we need to get the 9 essential amino acids from our diet. Conditionally essential, so non-essential amino acids, can be made by the body, but are still important in the diet. So it's important that when we look at our protein intake, that we are looking to gain as much of the essential amino acids as possible. Okay? The body is then able to synthesize and it's able to produce the conditionally essential amino acids. So our 9 essential amino acids are histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, I can never pronounce these, phenylalanine, threonine, valine, and tryptophan. And And then our conditionally essential amino acids are glycine, alanine, tyrosine, serine, cysteine, proline, glutamic acid, glutamine, aspartic acid, asparagine, and araginine. Try and pronounce that. Okay, but what you don't need to know all of these essential amino acids. It won't ask you questions on which of these is an essential amino acid and which of these is a non-essential amino acid. What you do need to know is how many essential amino acids there are and how many non-essential amino acids there are and the total amino acids. Okay, so there's in total 20, there's 9 essential amino acids and 11 non-essential amino acids. Okay, the difference, so essential amino acids are the 9 amino acids which the body is unable to synthesize itself. The non-essential are the ones that we can synthesize within our body. So it's important that within our diet, we make sure that our different sources of protein, we're going to get all 9 essential amino acids. So to do that, complete proteins are foods which contain all 9 essential amino acids in sufficient amounts, and they're considered to have a higher biological value. Incomplete proteins come from plant foods and lack in 1 or more essential amino acids and considered to have a lower biological value. So we can see with complete proteins, proteins that contain all 9 essential amino acids, animal sources include eggs, meat, poultry, dairy, and fish. Non-animal sources, we get our complete proteins from things like soy food, buckwheat, and quinoa. Okay, so we can see from this that anybody who is vegan or who's vegetarian will struggle to find sources of complete proteins. So they need to choose a large range of plant-based foods to ensure that they are getting all of the 9 essential amino acids in their diet. Any questions on any of that so far? Have we got anybody who is vegan or vegetarian on at the moment? And can you give us a little bit more information as to where you would get your complete proteins from? Okay. So, protein functions. Proteins have 3 basic functions in the human body. So first of all, we've got structural. So building of collagen, muscle, and skin. We've also got homeostatic. So proteins will help with hormone production, help with immunity, and also help to produce enzymes. And then finally, energy. So the alternative cellular energy source. So when our fats and carbohydrate stores have depleted, proteins will kick in as an energy source. Okay? So the 3 functions are structural, homeostatic, and energetic. Different sources of protein include turkey or chicken with skin removed, lean cuts of beef or pork where the visible fat is trimmed, fish or shellfish, pinto beans, black beans, kidney beans, lentils, split peas or garbanzo beans, nuts and seeds including almonds, hazelnuts, mixed nuts, peanuts, peanut butter, sunflower seeds or walnuts, tofu, tempeh or other soy protein products, and low-fat dairy products. So quite a range of sources of protein. So protein requirements. So daily protein requirements, so grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. So we can use this chart from the ACSM, so the American College for Sports Medicine. So these guidelines can tell us how much protein an individual should be taken into their diet per kilogram of body mass. So what we would do is we take the client's weight in kilograms and multiply by these figures. So a sedentary adult, somebody who doesn't do exercise, so somebody who is inactive, would need 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. A recreational adult exerciser needs between 0.8 and 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram. An adult endurance athlete, 1.2 to 1.6. A growing teenage athlete, 1.5 to 2 grams. An adult building muscle mass, 1.5 to 1.7 grams. And an estimated upper adult limit is 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. So can anybody see which kind of category they would fall into and how much protein that they would require in their diet? But also, are you working with any clients at the moment who may be taking in more than that? Or do you possibly take in more than your required amount?
Can I just ask, estimated upper adult limit, is that an older adult?
It's just general, very general adult upper limit.
So that's the maximum really that you'd recommend for anybody to take?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a big debate on protein intake and what it does. So especially when we look at the adult building muscle mass, 1.5 to 1.7. Now, if you've got a bodybuilder, that they would say that that is really low for their requirements. These are very general guidelines. Okay, if I've got an elite athlete who is a bodybuilder, they are probably going to require more than 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. Okay, because of the amount of training that they're doing as well. They could potentially be doing 2 or 3 training sessions per day. Okay, not just 1 training session per day. Okay, so they would potentially require more protein in their diet. For us as personal trainers working with our day-to-day clients, day-to-day people who are just coming in and doing maybe 1 session a day, if we've got somebody who's looking to build muscle mass, we can stay within these guidelines, 1.5 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. If you're taking in too much protein in the diet, what happens? Okay, so the liver and kidneys is where our protein is mixed within the bloodstream, if you like. So it's absorbed in the stomach into the bloodstream, and then the bloodstream flows through the liver and kidneys. So the liver and kidneys will kind of process, break down that protein even further and utilize it and send it out to where it's required. If we've got too much protein in the diet, it means that the liver and kidneys are working overtime. They're working way more than what they need to deal with this extra protein. What can then eventually happen is you can get liver failure and you can get kidney failure because of the extra protein. What you'll find as well is that somebody who is taking in too much protein in their diet, they're back and forward to the toilet all the time. So protein, extra protein is excreted through urea. So they're back and forward to the toilet. So you can kind of tell, right, how many times a day am I actually going to the toilet? Am I taking too much protein in my diet? Okay. So potentially there's liver and kidney failure as a result of too much protein over obviously a long period of time. You can see, like, maybe you've heard of people, bodybuilders, etc., people who have taken in too much protein have suffered from kidney damage and liver damage. What we need to do is we need to be able to track the amount of protein in our client's diet relevant to what they require. So we've spoken previously about things like MyFitnessPal apps and things that we can kind of track how much protein, etc., people are bringing into their diet. What we can also do is look at how many times they're actually going to the toilet each day. And an adult should be going to the toilet about 6 times per day, no more than 6 times per day, really, a general adult. So we can kind of track that as well. And we can also track the hydration levels through the color of the urine as well, because obviously the more hydrated you are, then potentially you're going to the toilet more times a day as well. Okay. Any questions on that before I move away from protein? It's funny that nobody's asked about protein shakes, which is the first. Okay. Moving on to carbohydrates then. Carbohydrates. All carbohydrates are made up of molecules or units called saccharides. There are 3 basic categories: simple carbohydrates in the form of sugars, complex carbohydrates, which are starches, and non-starch polysaccharides, which is fiber. So So sources of simple sugars, simple carbohydrates, so natural occurring sources such as milk, such as fruit, milk, and honey. They contain fructose and glucose in varying amounts. They contain vitamins and minerals. They contain antioxidants and phytochemicals. They contain high levels of dietary fiber. They contain traces of amino acids, and they are cheap and convenient. Processed food sources, such as biscuits, cakes, confectionery, and soft drinks, contain excessive sugar, so higher than 15 grams per 100 grams. So that's according to the Food Standards Agency. Higher energy density, so they release more energy. They contain little or no vitamins or minerals, and they may adversely affect the insulin response. So we spoke about that a little bit earlier. So the insulin response, you get that sugar spike, insulin kicks in, get the sugar low, and then what tends to happen is people will eat more high GI foods to get that sugar kick again. Okay, so when we look at our simple sugars, we do need a certain amount of simple carbohydrates. We try to get them from naturally occurring sources because of these reasons. Complex carbohydrates then, so starchy carbohydrates, larger molecules made comprising of the monosaccharides glucose, fructose, and galactose. So when we break down our starches, we convert them to glucose, fructose, and galactose. Multiple units of monosaccharides are bound together that are called polysaccharides. So, sources of unrefined carbohydrates. So can anybody tell me the difference between an unrefined and a refined carbohydrate?
Unrefined is natural.
Yeah.
Not tampered with.
Exactly, yeah. So refined is where the grain is broken down, okay, and turned into something else. So when we look at our sources, we can see that unrefined carbohydrates are natural occurrence. So it's wholemeal or whole grain products. So the grain hasn't been broken down. Whole grain rice, frozen vegetables, fresh vegetables, sweet potatoes, yams, pulses, and quinoa. Refined carbohydrate sources, then on the right hand side, we can see white bread, white pasta has been broken down and converted. Cakes, biscuits, and pastries, rice cakes, carbohydrate content of processed foods, and white rice. The properties of our unrefined carbohydrates, so what they do for us, they contain fructose and glucose in varying amounts. They contain vitamins and minerals. They contain antioxidants and phytochemicals, and contain high levels of dietary fiber. Our refined carbohydrates then contain excessive sugar, so again, higher than 15 grams per 100 grams. So if our product weighs 100 grams, we're getting 15 grams or more of that as sugar, according to the Food Standards Agency. They may contain processed, low-quality fats. They've got a high energy density, and they contain little vitamins and minerals. The glycemic index then. So again, we touched on this a little bit earlier on. The glycemic index provides an indication of the relevant speed that a food is converted to glucose and absorbed into the bloodstream. Foods that are high on the glycemic index, we can see that the blood glucose level will shoot up, but it won't last a long period of time. So the red line shows our high GI index food. So we get a sugar kick and then it'll drop off quite quickly. Whereas low glycemic index foods will give us a release of energy that will last a longer period of time. Okay. What you find as well is that if you mix high and low GI foods, so something like baked potato with baked beans on it, so the baked beans would be high GI, the baked potato would be lower GI, and if you mix the two, you get kind of an in-between build of energy lasting a longer period of time. Fiber. Fiber is a form of carbohydrate known as a non-starch polysaccharide. It is primarily made up of indigestible plant material such as cellulose and pectin found in fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. Fiber doesn't provide any energy, yet evidence suggests that it is vital for a healthy body. There's two types, soluble and insoluble fiber. So fiber is important in the diet because it helps with gut function. So it helps to maintain and keep the digestive system healthy. Two types of which are soluble and insoluble. Everybody okay with carbohydrates, or any questions before I move on? Okay. Fats, also known as lipids. You've got oily fats, lipids that are liquid at room temperature, and also solid fats, so lipids that are solid at room temperature. So, key function of dietary fats: formation of virtually all cell membranes, formation of myelin sheath within the nervous system, so it surrounds the axon, synthesis of steroid hormones, assists in the regulation of enzymes, insulation through the subcutaneous adipose tissue, protection of internal organs, transportation, storage, and utilization of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, fuel source during lower intensity workloads, and the storage of energy within the adipose tissue. Okay, so lots and lots of functions of fats. So this is why fats are important in our diet. So saturated fats. So saturated fats pack closely together and tend to be firm at room temperature. Some animal sources of saturated fats, so meat, so beef, pork, lamb, and venison, poultry, chicken and duck, dairy products, milk, cheese, yogurt, cream, and butter, and eggs. Non-animal sources would be coconut oil, palm kernel oil, cocoa butter, and palm oil. Functions of saturated fats. The saturated fats will support effective immune function. They protect the liver from alcohol, pesticides, and other toxins. They will provide energy and antimicrobial properties, such as fighting harmful microorganisms in the digestive tract. So a certain amount of saturated fats are important for these reasons. So unsaturated fats then are broken down into monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. So first of all are monounsaturated fats. So monounsaturated fats have a single double bond in the carbon chain, one bend. So you don't really need to know that, but it's how it's categorized. So monounsaturated fats, liquid oils at room temperature. So some sources of monounsaturated fatty acids are olive oil, avocado oil, lard, beef dripping, chicken, goose, and duck fat, rapeseed oil, sesame seed oil, and peanut oil. So what monounsaturated fats does, so many healthy promoting benefits for the body. They may help to keep arteries clean and free from plaque buildup. So when we spoke about the heart and the cardiorespiratory system, we spoke about atherosclerosis and the buildup of plaque within the artery walls. So what we've got here on the top left, we've got a nice clear artery. And as we move through the different arteries, we can see the buildup of plaque. So increase in blood pressure and reducing the flow of blood through the arteries. So what monounsaturated fats will do is that they will help to clean up that plaque. So they act as scavengers and take away that plaque and clear the blood flow within the artery walls. Okay. Polyunsaturated fats. So several double bonds in the carbon chain, so several bends in the molecule. So different shapes serve to provide different functions. So first of all, we've got sources of omega-3 fatty acids, whereas we've got oily fish, cod liver oil, flax oil, walnut oil, hemp seed oil, and pasture-reared eggs, and sources of omega-6 fatty acids, evening primrose oil, safflower oil, soybean oil, grapeseed, sunflower, corn, and sesame seed oils. So polyunsaturated fats come in the oil format. It's omega-3 and omega-6. And another form of fats then is our trans fats. So trans fats are man-made fats through the process of what's called hydrogenation, where they will take a liquid oil, they will put it through hydrogenation and turn it into a more solid oil, a solid fat, sorry. So trans fats linked to a deterioration in blood lipid profiles and heart disease. It's implicated in increased insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and it's implicated in causing cancer, obesity, and bone loss. So different forms of trans fats where we can find it: margarine products, pre-made biscuits, pre-made cakes, pre-made cracker products, takeaway foods, pre-made pies, pastry products, pre-prepared box meals, and many processed food products. So trans fats are the bad fats that have been man-made. Any questions on fats? Guys, I feel I'm going through this really, really quick. Has anybody got any questions or want me to recap anything? Silence means I'm going to carry on. Okay. Moving into micronutrients then. So two main categories of micronutrients, we've got vitamins and minerals. So our vitamins are broken down into fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. Our minerals are broken into macro and trace minerals. So first of all, let's look at fat-soluble vitamins. Our fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K, and they can only be absorbed, transported, and utilized in the presence of fat. So this is why we need a certain amount of fat within our body to be able to absorb, transport, and utilize our vitamins A, D, E, and K. Diets that are too low in fat can lead to serious vitamin deficiencies and diseases. Cholesterol. So dietary, sorry, I'm going to skip that, come back to it. Sorry, I think I've messed up these slides a little bit. I'll check it again afterwards. So cholesterol, dietary cholesterol intake is low. The body increases the synthesis of its own supply. Sorry, guys, I've messed this up a second. Let me jump through this. Should be the end. Right, this is what we should be having. Fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. So fat-soluble vitamins, what I've got here is each of the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. I've got what it does and sources of it. So rather than me reading these to you, I will send this and you can kind of see what they do. But we can see with fat-soluble vitamins, our sources of them are things like oils. We've got some meat products, fruit and vegetables, where we'll find our fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. I'm going to go through water-soluble vitamins next. So water-soluble vitamins are vitamins B and C. Okay, these can only be absorbed, transported, and utilized in the presence of water. So these vitamins cannot be stored, and excess intake is lost in the urine. So what happens is once we take these vitamins in, they're utilized straight away. They're not stored for later use. Therefore, they need to be included in the diet on a daily basis. Vitamin B complex and vitamin C. So again, I've got what they do and sources of them. Okay, so that is the vitamins, water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins. Our macro minerals then, so what I've got here is a breakdown of all of the macro minerals. So we've got calcium, chloride, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, sulfur, and sulfur. Yeah, so these are the ones that we need to know. What I've put is what their function is and sources of them as well. Now, I've seen very few questions come up asking about a particular mineral, what it does, and the source of it. Okay, but just be aware of the different minerals that are required and how a varying diet will help to incorporate all of the minerals for the function that they have. Okay, and the final section, which I should have put at the bottom, bear with me, sorry guys about this, is talking about cholesterol. So dietary cholesterol intake, when a dietary intake cholesterol is low, the body increases the synthesis of its own supply. When dietary cholesterol intake increases, cholesterol production will fall. So lipoproteins completely encase lipids for transport in the blood. So is that the buildup of cholesterol within the blood system. If our cholesterol level is too high, we are going to get that plaquey buildup within the artery walls. Lipoproteins will completely encase the lipids for transport in the blood. So what happens is if we've got too many low density lipoproteins, it's going to deposit those lipids on the artery walls and build up a plaque. So functions of cholesterol. very low density lipoproteins. So these are synthesized by the liver. They contain cholesterol and triglycerides and transport triglycerides into adipose tissue, so your fat stores around the body. Low density lipoproteins are formed from VLDLs once they have unloaded most of their triglycerides, transport the remaining cholesterol to cells throughout the body that are needed. High density lipoproteins are synthesized by the liver, and they transport excess cholesterol from the tissues and blood back to the liver. Now, the big thing to remember from this is LDLs, low density lipoproteins, are bad. HDLs, high density lipoproteins, are good. Okay? So what we need to look at in our diet is that we are getting more HDLs in than LDLs. So LDLs are going to deposit those fats on the artery walls and build up a plaque, increasing our cholesterol level. What HDLs do, high density lipoproteins, is that they will come in and they will mop up and act as scavengers and clear that plaque from the artery walls. What we tend to find is that in a general diet, a person's profiles of LDLs to HDLs tends to be 3 to 1, 3 bad to 1 good. So people's cholesterol levels will gradually tick up and up and up. But somebody who's got high cholesterol will have profiles of 5 to 1, so 5 bad to 1 good. But through exercise and good nutrition, we can bring those numbers down. So we can bring them back down to that normal level of 3 bad to 1 good, or better. We can actually bring them down 1 to 1, where we've got a better ratio of HDLs and LDLs. Any questions on that?
Is it different when people have to be put on medication because of high cholesterol? Is that not diet related?
Yeah, so through poor diet, what's happened is that their cholesterol level has gone up. So their cholesterol level is up at that 5, 6 to 1. So medication will bring that level down. So what the medication will do is that it will kick in more HDLs to bring to scavenge and to wipe up and mop up that plaque within the artery walls. But the thing is, if that individual maintains a bad diet, they're taking this medication and it's not really going to do anything for them. So they will take the medication, but also they will have to improve their diet as well. That answer your question?
Okay, so cholesterol build-up in the arteries is purely diet-based. It's not a genetic thing.
No, good question. There could be something to do with genetics in there, but generally, and this is kind of just talking from experience of people that I've worked with high cholesterol, it has been through diet. Okay. But there could be genetic. So doctors would be able to kind of answer that question more for you. There could be some genetic factors that cause high cholesterol, that somebody just genetically has a high cholesterol level. But we find that people who've got very high cholesterol, there is diet influence in there as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Answer your question. Okay. Cool. Okay. Finally, then, just thinking about micronutrients. So micronutrients, your vitamins, first of all, fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Water-soluble vitamins are B and C. And then for our micronutrients and minerals, so what they do is they build strong bones and teeth, control body fluids inside and outside the cells, and will turn food into energy. So guys, that's a really, really broad and quick. I'm going to change these slides and set them up the way I wanted them originally, sorry. So we're looking at macro and micronutrients. So I'll just replace those slides as to how they should line up before I send it out to you. Has anybody got any questions on anything that I've just covered there?
Is there a certain percentage of questions on, is the nutrient paper, did you say it was one whole paper on its own?
Yeah, nutrition is one whole paper, yeah. And I couldn't tell you as to how many you'll get on macronutrients or micronutrients, etc. Okay. It varies. What I'll be doing, so tomorrow's sessions, we're looking at kind of what we've done today and we're going to then look at programming exercise and looking at nutrition as well. So we're kind of going to look at, because when you do like level 2 principles of exercise nutrition, you kind of look at carbohydrates, etc. We've gone in a little bit more detail in it today, but then with the nutrition paper, it is kind of more geared around exercise and how we fuel exercise and fuel sports. So when next week as well, when I do the quiz, I'm going to basically give you a good balance of all different types of questions that are going to come up on the paper. I can't predict, but try my best. Okay. Okay, guys, let me just close this down.